the conclusion seems to be that there's not a one-size-fits-all for online de-radicalization. So you hear a lot of different things. You hear some people are like, oh, I really like, this comedy video, and I came across it and I started laughing. I really like this ContraPoints video because she was using the same language as the alt-right. I really like this Destiny debate I saw because it really made this person that I used to follow kind of look foolish. I really love this. I really love this video essayist. I really love this book. I really love this magazine, this news article, this TV show, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it was, there isn't a one-size-fits-all that is scalable that they have found. All right, so there's quite a discussion going on right now because we just got yet another Twitter Files. We're at Twitter Files number, 4012, something like that. It's a number that doesn't exist. There's this article in The Nation. Just because mainstream media decides to ignore them doesn't mean the files aren't newsworthy or important. I will agree with this. Absolutely. It is newsworthy. I'm not here to defend the actions that go on between very high levels of multinational corporations that have complete monopolistic control. It's good to reveal things about them, leak them, just so everyone knows. And it's also good to reveal to everybody, hey, under capitalism, you know how the left has been saying this? Well, the more capital you have, the more power you have. The more power you have, you'll be able to influence various aspects of society, including politics. And usually you can use it to transform and curve society to bend to your whims, and that's kind of a problem. So yes, case in point, this is happening. But I did want to talk about this a little bit in terms of the importance about why people should be talking about this, while at the same time pointing out Elon Musk is doing this and dangling keys in some weird sense to give the right and the far right ammunition at this moment in order to be able to be like, we knew it, we knew they were lying to us all along. Everything the Twitter Files has revealed happened under the Trump administration. So far, all of it. It's all under the Trump administration, as well as a Trump-appointed head of the FBI, someone who I believe was, a Heritage Foundation member? Conservatives. He worked on the Bush administration. This is not exactly a Democrat/Republican thing, the way that they're trying to make it out to be a Democrat thing. They're like, the Twitter Files are the Democrats, because the Democrats are evil, and they're SJWs, and they're liberals, just like this company, Twitter. And it's like, no, this company is a company that was out to make a profit. Doesn't matter if a lot of people who work there are liberal. Doesn't matter if a lot of people who work there went along any particular ideology. It was out, first and foremost, to continue to expand and dominate in its field and devour all the competition. The files showed how Twitter deliberated over banning certain accounts, Donald Trump's the biggest, and ultimately suppressed through the removal of links and even blocking direct messages, reporting by the New York Post on Hunter Biden's stolen laptop, which turned out to be a valid news story, in the sense that the younger Biden's laptop was real, and so were all of its contents. Most liberals did not care, because of October 2020, and the defeat to Trump mattered more than any commitment to free speech principles. The locking of the account of a daily newspaper in New York City for weeks on end simply did not register with the crisis of a vital election looming. Well, that's one narrative. There's also the narrative that a lot of people on the right were getting special privilege. Because you see, the right was saying on a regular basis, they're censoring us. These SJW cucks, they're all these pink hair and blue haired weirdos. They're censoring our free speech. And it's like, they actually weren't. They were taking pretty strong measures to not delete your accounts or to not permanently remove your ability to use the platform. And instead, we're taking other measures. Like Libs of TikTok, for example, multiple times. There's so many times that it actually had a warning at the top, do not, take action without consulting the highest levels. It is simply not enough to say Twitter is a private company and it can do what it wants. As the progressive California Congressman Ro Khanna pointed out, this is the kind of answer that gets you an A on a high school exam, but fails to account for the obligation a private entity of enormous consequence has to the public. Public discourse occurs on private platforms, and these platforms and their scale and reach behave like public utilities. The telephone company can't stop a neo-Nazi from ever placing a phone call. Edison can't shut off a Proud Boy's electricity bill if he's still paying the bills. There's a conflation too. The First Amendment and free speech. As many liberals who now aggressively favor social media moderation point out, constitutional protections referred to the government can and cannot do. This is true. The government cannot pass laws, is what the First Amendment refers to. Twitter isn't the federal government, but free speech as a concept dates back many centuries, encompassing the various philosophies and theories concerning the protection of the individual right to freely think and communicate. Corporate power over speech arguably matters just as much as the government regulation of speech. The former simply cannot be waved away as a private matter. Freedom of speech is not absolute, and there's reasonable regulations related to criminality, as well as the mores restricting bullying and harassment. The question, as always, is how far would these regulations should go when applied to what is now the privately controlled digital public square. Twitter, Facebook, Google, TikTok are not like newspapers of old where editors decided daily what was fit to print. They are much more all-encompassing. So this is a very complicated topic, one that's very difficult to just have in a quick soundbite, but that's what everyone on the internet wants, especially on Twitter. You want quick soundbites. You want to be able to be like, well, this is why I'm right, and this is why free speech, and I'm on the right side. So you actually have to separate a whole bunch of different parts. If you're talking about the First Amendment to the Constitution, that is that the government can pass no laws that will infringe upon the speech of the press, as well as of religion, as well as the freedom of assembly. That's good. That's a very good thing. That is in place so that you cannot have the same kind of authoritarian structures that you would have under, say, a monarchy, right? So that is a good thing. I'm actually for the First Amendment to the Constitution. Not an American, but I admire that one. That being said, have these sites grown under capitalism to form these monopolies that dominate all their industries? The answer is 100% yes. There's a very small amount of companies that control all of our activity on the internet. So those companies need to first be broken up, which is an achievable goal. You can use antitrust laws to do that. But not just that, we do need to have a discussion about how these things need to be controlled or regulated. Here's an idea, and one that I'm going to be basing upon people who talk about radicalization. Because one of the things you want to watch out for when you are talking about policing speech is what exactly is the speech being used for. I know a lot of people are like, well, I just want to be able to make jokes. I just want to be able to do this. I just want to be able to that. And then other people genuinely are just like, I just want to be able to say the N-word, not because I'm racist, but I want the freedom to say whatever I want on any platform. That shouldn't matter. It's just words. Words can't hurt people, that kind of stuff. So there's that argument as well. What you should be looking at is we already regulate, say, radio and television, right? You have different agencies in Canada and the US that regulate that. So when there is something that is capable, a tool, if you will, of reaching very large amounts of people publicly through technology, we have decided as a society that we're going to come together and put certain regulations on what that technology and what that reach can be. So yeah, you don't see the neo-Nazi white power story hour appearing on HBO, not just because it wouldn't be very profitable and would destroy HBO's branding for all time, but also because there would probably be some pretty heavy regulations in place to be like, well, actually, no, you can't just have a show featuring this weird Holocaust denier for an hour and a half. Yeah, Nick Fuentes can't have his own TV show. And then, behold, we have the internet. The internet that used to be a lot more like the Wild West is controlled by a lot of small companies. These small amount of corporations control the thing that you probably watch the most amount of video on, YouTube. The thing that you probably do the most amount of research on, Wikipedia. The thing that you probably spend the most amount of time using email, Google. A lot of the suites, word processing, stuff like that, probably still Google. Statistics, stats, Excel online, probably still Alphabet, probably still Google. Alphabet also owns the YouTube I was mentioning before. Your parents' social media, Facebook. Your social media, maybe it's TikTok, maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's maybe even Twitter, or the old Twitter, who knows, or Mastodon now, whatever it changed to. But anyways, very small amount of companies control all these corporations. All these corporations control all of these different websites that we go to all the time. So people on these websites, when their social media accounts grow to a certain size, when they reach past that point, when they start getting to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, they start having similar reaches to small publications, major publications, small TV networks, major TV networks, competitive now with some incredibly large networks, and these are global networks that have a very, very powerful voice. So should there be some regulation in place to keep these things and to keep the public in general in a safe situation while respecting the fact that we need to be able to have the free speech? Can you take measures to not particularly limit completely someone's reach or amplify their reach if they happen to be something that is hateful or dangerous, and then just limit their speech altogether using technology? How does radicalization work?
White supremacism.
That's it. That's the end of the segment.
It's like one of the rarest things in this country.
It happened to Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Richard Spencer. The list goes on. All of these individuals were deplatformed or kicked off of different web services after those services deemed comments they made hateful, a characterization they all deny.
We are experiencing what we see as a wave of deplatforming right now. Oftentimes when we talk about deplatforming, we talk about someone losing their account on social media. But deplatforming can exist in many different ways.
Deplatforming isn't just limited to individuals. The tactic is also being used to silence extremist websites. Shortly before he allegedly murdered 22 people at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, Patrick Crusius shared his manifesto to an obscure web forum called 8chan.
The website 8chan. That's where the suspected gunman in Saturday's attack
posted a 4-page anti-immigrant manifesto.
This wasn't the first time that an alleged mass shooter had posted a manifesto to 8chan. The individuals who allegedly carried out the Christchurch mosque shootings and the Poway synagogue shooting also posted their manifestos to 8chan. But this time the response to the shooting was different. Cloudflare, an internet infrastructure company, decided to deplatform or stop providing its services to 8chan, effectively shutting down the site, at least for now.
There are about 1 million users of 8chan. 8chan is an
It's so wild that him and his son may very well be Q. This is your prophet. This is your Messiah right here.
empty piece of paper for writing on.
In response to the takedown, 8chan's owner, Jim Watkins, posted this video to YouTube.
It is clearly a political move to remove 8chan from Cloudflare. It has forced a lot of people to find other places to talk.
It's shocking. It's even more shocking when you listen to them speak. Like, if you watch that HBO, like, 6-part documentary where they pretty much catch them red-handed, not being the original Q, but the modern-day Q, because it shifted from 4chan to 8chan, but at a certain point taking it over. And it's like, the weird-ass philosophy going on in both of their brains is now manifesting in such a way that they have the ability to control these legions of people who, like, they don't even know half the time how they're steering them. They'll put a couple of things out there and then be like, oh, I was very shocked at what I saw. It was very, very disturbing to see the results of the manifestations. And you're like, Jesus Christ, this is the motherfuckers behind all this garbage.
Today, deplatforming is the most popular tactic to deal with extremist content online.
Oh
Does
yeah,
it
his
actually
congressional
work?
run was so funny.
It's not necessarily going to
I can't remember
create
where
a
they live.
causal
I think it
chain
might be
where we get
Malaysia.
rid of hate online. But what it does do is it disrupts this community of people that have been building over the last 5 years a culture of harm and harassment and incitement.
According to
Philippines,
Professor
okay.
Donovan, deplatforming might slow the growth and the impact of these websites, but it can't wipe their ideology away entirely. The individuals who carry out such attacks are not the lone wolves the media often portray them as, Donovan says, noting that their manifestos suggest they are part of a growing and global white supremacist movement.
When we say that they're lone wolves, what we're pointing to is that these are disaffected people who live in isolation and are coming out of nowhere to conduct this violence. Instead, the research is actually pointing to that these people are never alone, that they reach out online, they have a lot of questions. Mostly they look into white supremacist theories of how political parties and media are colluding to keep white people down.
One of the things is that, like, everyone likes to feel smart or correct. It's a very validating feeling. So when you're online, especially, and when you're battling with people on Twitter and stuff like that, that's usually what studies that analyze people's responses on Twitter and what engages and keeps them reacting to other people is, again, trying to be correct in a given moment. And so if you were looking for that, maybe I'm the only person who truly understands how the world works. And then you're looking for answers. And then you're like, maybe I'm the only one who sees this for how it is. And then more people are radicalizing you. And then you're finding more communities online where other people are starting to agree with that. And it's like, oh yeah, no. You definitely understand it. It happens to be the Jews who control the media and the banks and all that kind of stuff. And you're not wrong. And some people are willing to tell the truth. And people are waking up, brother. And then, oh, you should join our Discord. You should join our Fortnite group. You should join this and join that, blah, blah, blah. And then they're just spiraling deeper and deeper and deeper into this world. It's again because it's starting to give them answers they don't think they're finding in other places.
It wasn't that long ago that Scott Ernest believed in that white nationalist narrative.
I got involved by accident. It was 2004, and I was just searching the internet. I'm not even sure what I was doing, just surfing. And I came across a blog.
Like many young extremists, Ernest was radicalized online.
Eventually, it did become a community thing. You get in there and you meet these people, and I mean, even if you don't necessarily like all of them, you know, you start feeling connected to them.
He eventually became a moderator on Stormfront, a popular white nationalist website.
It's for all white nationalists. So you could be a moderate, you could be extreme, you could be KKK, you could be NSM,
He
national
tripped and fell into some white nationalism like Mr. Magoo his way into the KKK.
socialist.
He says he began to distance himself from the movement as it became more violent.
You know, a lot of the movement actually believe in the mass shootings.
In an email to the Wall Street Journal, Stormfront's founder, Don Black, said, "We have always clearly stated that we do not tolerate any posts even suggesting illegal violence. Any such posts are immediately deleted by moderators and the user banned.
No, they're not looking for answers, they're looking for validation of their own beliefs. That's kind of my point, Dead Fresh. Like, I agree with you. That's ultimately it. And you're finding other people who are starting to validate that, but then they expand upon it, right? Some people get in there for that red pill shit or that MGTOW shit, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you know, this is basically, I hate women because blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, and do you know what else is really fucked up? Have you ever asked a Jewish question? And it's like, no, but, and then that adds to it, and this adds to it, then then you're force feeding into this whole white supremacist, like, anti-women counterculture.
First time I ever questioned why I was in the movement was when Anders Breivik shot a bunch of kids in Norway. That caught my eye because at some point previous to that, Anders Breivik had actually been on my Facebook friend list under the name of Andrew Berwick.
Breivik, who murdered 77 people in 2011, has since become an icon of sorts for white nationalists. On sites like 8chan, users have celebrated his kill count for years, and done so legally. That's because, vile or not, the racist and violent speech often found on sites like 8chan is protected under the First Amendment.
There's much discussion about social media, its implications, the harms done, and the question is posed: what should government do about social media?
Civil libertarians like John Samples are skeptical of any government reforms, arguing that regulation of speech will backfire.
Status quo, bro. Things are going great.
And be abused.
We have very strong protections. And that's going to mean that there's not much government can do.
But that hasn't damped calls for reform. For her part, Professor Donovan would like to see legislation regulating the amplification of hate speech online.
Individuals who own websites are allowed to decide what stays and what goes. That is non-controversial. But when we run into the problem of scale, when that speech scales so that it is comparable to broadcast, when you have 50, 60,000 people that are looking at particular posts or videos online that contain racist speech, hate speech, harassment, incitement, then we have to come up with a schema related to amplification, like we did with broadcast radio, like we've done with television, that sets a different set of rules.
For decades now, radio and television stations have had to follow regulations meant to ensure they serve the public interest, based in part on their reach. Although the internet is different, Donovan says it's clear our current laws have not kept up with our technological advancements, and that perhaps we should consider a new framework.
You can say that kind of any regulation around what someone says online is protected, but I think that's clearly not right today.
The third way forward is already in the works. Zuckerberg announced that Facebook is creating an independent body that will review controversial content.
You know, it's not clear.
They made that independent body, by the way. This is old. This is 2019. What was something I really wanted to show you is this, and when I've done research on the same topic, it comes down to that same point. Once you get to scalability, so once you start getting to, again, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, you're starting to get to the same amount of reach that would be happening under traditional media. It doesn't matter if one happens to be in your cable and, oh, in the radio box that I hear the voicey talky man on the, like all that kind of shit. Doesn't matter if it's that, or if it happens to be someone on the internet who's also got the same kind of reach and just has to type whatever comes to their brain. I say that as someone who has both been censored multiple times and thinks that people who have large accounts like I do need to be under those kind of levels of scrutiny, because if you suddenly have someone who's straight up doing the Holocaust denial, who's just straight up doing things that are just generally speaking not things that we find to be acceptable to be proliferated broadly speaking in society. Like, people always say, like, well, you know, we should have a right to be able to give out hate speech and people should be able to say things and say whatever they want. It's like, that's different than you would probably have some concern if you saw in the streets just rallies of people who are all screaming stuff about the Jews or indigenous people or black people. Then you would be like, oh, whoa, that seems like a problem. That's not good or normal or healthy, you know?
Wouldn't you agree that a certain amount of dogmatism is not only not bad, but it's a sign of progress?
Yeah, it was a very difficult. It was a very difficult day for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. But you know, I found myself, and I noticed this among a lot of my peers as well.
Oh, I don't have to play this full clip, but this one says internet radicalization experts knew violence was brewing. What did they see? When you watch the entirety of this and then read some of the articles on the same topic, the conclusion seems to be that there's not a one-size-fits-all for online de-radicalization. So you hear a lot of different things. You hear some people are like, oh, I really like, this comedy video, and I came across it and I started laughing. I really like this ContraPoints video because she was using the same language as the alt-right. I really like this Destiny debate I saw because it really made this person that I used to follow kind of look foolish. I really love this. I really love this video essayist. I really love this book. I really love this magazine, this news article, this TV show, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it was, there isn't a one-size-fits-all that is scalable. That they have found. They haven't found a way to be like, okay, so if we just implement system X, that will de-radicalize everyone. Because human beings, being as vast and complex as we are and diverse as we are, seems like different people require different things. The age-old debate, the debate bros versus the video essayists, turns out the science says there is not a superior one in terms of de-radicalization. It turns out we do not have a scalable way of doing this. There are people who have been shown to be more effective than others. Beau of the Fifth Column, for example, someone who appeared in that list of de-radicalization experts were studying that actually had a significant ability to appeal to people who were already either radicalized or on the far right, because it's someone who spoke about a lot of the same things that they do: survival methods, manly stuff, what kind of supplies would I need to be able to survive in a hard condition, those kind of things. Either way, that's an interesting thing to take away from this as well, that when you are trying to discuss how is it best for us to de-radicalize a lot of these more extreme cases, turns out there's not a one-size-fits-all solution to it.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.